All right, we are live. Welcome to Cloud Talk on this August 13th. It is not Friday the 13th. It is Thursday the 13th. And we are Cloud Talk. We are a weekly show every Thursday at noon Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. for those in the Chicago time zone. I am Brian Fanzo, better known as iSocialFans on the Twitters, joined every week by my co-host, Daniel Newman. How are you today, Daniel?
Doing good, Brian. I'm excited for our second of 4 weeks of building and sustaining digital transformation and building the digital organization, sponsored by our friends at SAP, which we need to shout out. We'll probably try to stop talking about too much sponsors and just get into the content pretty soon. Also love our friends at pivotpoint.io. Check them out as well. They've been supporting Cloud Talk for about 30 weeks now. So believe it or not, Brian, we're going on a year of Cloud Talk. So it's pretty cool that we've managed to be consistent. Now, our FOMO rolled us over into a new technology platform, but for almost 50 weeks in a row, and I don't think we've missed one yet, maybe one somewhere in there. We've been doing Cloud Talk, and it's been fun. It's been quite a journey from mobile and talking data, talking social, but this month we're talking digital transformation, which is a big thing. And this week I was inspired. My inspired digital transformation quote came from John Antioco. And John was the CEO of Blockbuster in 2008. Let me tell you what he said in 2008, and this might help you understand why digital transformation is so important. In 2008, John Antioco said, "I've been frankly confused by this fascination that everybody has with Netflix. Netflix doesn't really have or do anything that we can't or don't already do ourselves." In 2008, John Antioco said that in January of 2014, Blockbuster closed their last 300 stores. So I thought that was a great way to kick off this second week of Cloud Talk, talking about digital transformation.
I love it. Innovate or die, right? Or at least go digital or die. I think that'll be an interesting discussion. All right, so for all those that are joining us on Blab, you can comment in the comment section on the side here on Blab on the platform, but we'd love for you to use the hashtag CloudTalk out on Twitter and jump in the conversation. We're going to get into question number 1 today, and today we are talking about really creating a digital organization. And SAP has a report out, Gartner has a report out, McKinsey has a report out, all within the last couple of months, all talking about what a digital organization really looks like, what a digital organization is. And I think it's pretty interesting when we're talking digital and digital transformation, we kind of have to get into really what a digital organization is, because you can't focus on transformation and disruption if you don't even know what the hell you're going to be, right? You don't know what you're actually going to transform into. So today's talk is about digital organization. So I'm going to jump into question 1. I'll fire it your way, Daniel. For those of you on the Twitters, get ready for question 1 to come out there. So how has technology and social media impacted how companies recruit and attract talent? And I'm going to get into why we started with talent, but we're starting with talent and recruiting. We're going to get into what the brand looks like. We're going to get into internal comms, and then we're going to get into the future. So we're going to build this conversation over the next hour. So, once again, thanks to our sponsors, SAP. So Daniel, what are your thoughts on the new age or the new view of recruiting thanks to technology and social media?
Should probably have almost asked that question the other way. How has social media and technology not impacted recruiting and hiring in business? Because it's seemingly doing it in every way. So let me ask you this, Brian. You've been through, you joined us about a little over a year ago. How did we meet?
Twitter chats.
We met in Twitter chats, built a relationship through content and reading each other's content and blogs and hanging out and talking on LinkedIn. We built our organizations. We have over 30 people working with us now. Almost every single one of them, I can say, has been hired, has been vetted, has been basically connected to our organization through a social relationship. There's not such a thing as a cold hire. So, I'm going to take a little journey back in time. When I was CEO of United Visual back in 2009, we used to put out monster ads, and that was digital, right? But when we needed a new account manager, we were hiring a administrator, we would put an advertisement out on monster.com or careerbuilder.com, and we would actually use those tools to try to bring in cold resumes, because we didn't have a great way. Of course, we'd run around the office. Hey, anybody know anybody that's good at this, or know anybody in the industry looking for a job? And, they may know a few people, but that was kind of it. It was almost like just posting something and hoping it would happen. Today, really the way companies are getting their best talent is through referral programs internally and through social media. And we vet and get to know our people through those channels, right? So the first thing that happens, Brian, when someone says to you, hey, Brian, there's a great company I think that you should work with, or that we should, get engaged with or connect with, what's the first thing you do?
I'm going to look at their digital footprint. I even say I go beyond Google, right? It used to be you would say I'd Google them. But now it's like, I'm going to Google them. I'm going to check their LinkedIn profile. I'm going to see if they have a website. I'm going to see what content they created. I'm going to check their social platforms. It's going to go above and beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to basically look across the board at who they are. You're going to look them up on Twitter, look them up on Facebook, look them up on LinkedIn. Then you're going to Google them, and then you're going to see who do you know in common, and then you're going to send a note to them. And what has happened is, and before I turn this question back over to you, I'll kind of use a word, but it's almost gone from you're interviewing for a job, or you're being interviewed, to a mutual interview that people have between companies and potential employees, because the vetting now is much more two-way. You used to walk into an interview much like a buyer used to walk into a car dealership. One person had all the information, had the complete advantage, and the other person, right, was sort of at that disadvantage with no information. Now we walk in, everybody knows everybody. Everybody's learned a lot about both people, and you walk into this meeting sort of determining if you want to work together, which is completely a different way to hire than, say, even 5 or 6 years ago. Completely.
And let's face it, times are changing, and thank goodness, because last time I checked, if you're dynamic, if you're creative, if you're innovative, if you're forward thinking and you're thinking outside the box, when you submit a paper resume, does it really prove that you have any of those 5 qualities? Give me a break, right? You how many resumes, or paper, entries say, hey, I'm innovative and creative, yet I printed this out on a piece of paper. So to me, the true representation of who you are, your first impression, and really your resume is your digital footprint. It is the digital footprint that you have across the board. So from a brand's perspective, not only should they be looking at someone's digital footprint and understanding what their digital resume is, but they should also be engaging with them on that platforms to see, how many people would submit for a job and say, I'm a digital strategist, yet they don't have their own personal website. They don't have their LinkedIn profile hasn't been updated. To me, that's just as bad as going in wearing a dirty shirt from 4 years ago, because that dirty shirt, it was the thing you wore for an interview, and you're not going to update your digital footprint in 4 years. Why would someone hire you as an innovative thought leader? And I'm not saying all jobs require someone looking at a digital footprint, but I would say a majority of them are leading that way. And that includes something like, I used to laugh because, I have a security clearance. And for me, people would always say, Brian, you're posting that on social media. What your companies, your brands are going to find out about that. It's like, they're going to find out about it anyhow. For me, you might as well own that, understand that, and come up with this idea that if you tell a great story, if you're innovative, if you think outside the box, wouldn't you be doing that on digital to begin with? You don't have to prove it by saying it in a well-formed paragraph on some stale piece of paper that you printed out 100 of to give to every single person. So I think the idea of social and technology for innovation is, if you want somebody that's a mobile developer, wouldn't you engage with them on a mobile platform? If you want someone that is a manager of digital work from home employees, once you see what tools they use, how they use LinkedIn to collaborate with their team, if they're maybe in a Slack group, doing those type of discussions, I think that is where true companies that find innovative employees are now doing it in those new dynamic ways.
I like what Mitch Jackson said in the blab here. He said, send me a link to your blog and you may get an interview. I don't do resumes. And, I think there's probably still some validity to a strong LinkedIn presence acting as your resume. But I would say if I was out there looking to get hired for a job, and, the first thing, especially if I'm in a digital marketing kind of role or working in a tech company, and if they say, send me your CV and your resume as the first thing they want, I would almost pause for a minute and say, if that's, I understand the whole thing about checking the box, and I understand that there's some formalities still in the hiring process, but like I said, I almost think we walk into jobs like we've skipped that vetting stage. We've skipped that flirting, and we're going straight to dating. You've gotten to know enough about me, and I've gotten enough to know enough about you to decide before I ever even come in for the first interview if I'm interested. That's how we become more productive. We stop wasting so much time doing things that can be easily done using the technology that's right in front of us. And so going forward, and the other thing I like to say is it's not really about social media and digital. It's about omni-channel. It's about using all the channels to appropriately vet and learn about the potential companies you could work for and the people that you can hire. Because like you said, in mobile, it's different than in a social role, which is different than in a manufacturing company, which is going to be different than, in a recreational business. Like, how are you using the various different channels that are appropriate for that business? So you can say, hey, you're in an athletics and recreation business. Are you using specialized social networks that are dedicated for that? Are you in groups that are talking about those specific topics? What does your blog look like? What are you an expert in? What have you published? Where have you published? All those different things really bring together, instead of just saying, are you digital? Are you social? It's, are you omni-channel? Are you using the right channels to effectively show thought leadership in the business you want to be known for?
No, and I love it. Vala Afsfar, our friend over at Extreme Networks, and a big congratulations to him. He just took a brand new large role over at Salesforce. So congrats to Vala, a friend and mentor of mine. Across the board. But Vala, was one of the ones that I remember the day that Vala said, he put out on Twitter, and he said, "We're looking for a new social media manager. Do not send a resume or email me your CSV. Apply via Twitter." And he literally would have a conversation with you publicly on Twitter that would go to a Twitter DM that would lead to a phone call to you to be interviewed. He didn't post that job rec anywhere on the website. It was not posted on monster.com. It was not posted anywhere else because he wanted somebody in that field and in that space. And that was really specific. You're right? Like, that's only possible really if you're hiring for someone that you need to know that knows Twitter. But at the same time, to me, that's thinking outside the box, because he doesn't want somebody that's just going to give him a canned resume and say I'm a great social media person. He wants someone that's listening on social media, hears the job, and then actually applies for the job using the platform that they say. And in the idea of omni-channel right now, for those that are just tuning in, this is Cloud Talk. It is our weekly show. We are doing it on blab.im. We have migrated away from Google Hangouts because Google Hangouts forgot to innovate and are still the same glitchy things that they were on September 12th, 2012, because I went back to look up the first day that they came out. So we are broadcasting on Periscope, on Meerkat. We are following the conversation on Cloud Talk as well. So we are doing this. This is sponsored by SAP. SAP is sponsoring our show, as well as pivotpoint.io. So we're going to jump into question number 2. So Daniel, and I'm going to give you question number 2, and we can flip it back the other way. But what are the new characteristics of a digital employee and customer within a digital organization? And I'm not saying millennials, because let's get this straight. It's a millennial mindset. It doesn't matter what year you were born. If you can use digital, if you're a digital employee, age doesn't matter. It's your ability to embrace digital. But what are these characteristics of this new digital employee that is kind of leading this digital revolution and this digital transformation inside of companies?
Well, I think the first thing is, I won't say FOMO, but I'd say they're experimental. They're willing to try new things and new ways to get closer. So, like in terms of us, right? We were really comfortable doing our chats the way we did them for a long time, right? And this was the business we were in. We were in the chat. We innovated, right, when we started doing Google Hangout Twitter chats. That was innovation. And then what happened is, over a period of time, that became stale. Google Hangouts got stale. They became kludgy. They weren't super interactive. They weren't easy to follow. And you saw it because the numbers started going on. We said, okay, we've got to innovate. How do we innovate? And then you found through your FOMO Blab. And so, in an organization that's sort of rigid, you would say, no, stick to the plan, right? And, what we said is, heck, let's try something new and see how it works. We knew there were risks. We discussed the risks of, less potential engagement on Twitter, for instance. Now, let's step outside of like what we do, because we're in this business, and let's just talk about a more traditional B2B technology company. Some of the things I would say the digital organization understands is that the employee is the first customer, and the employee is also the first advocate of every business. So in the past, it was all about marketing your business, promoting your business. And I think I saw somewhere, I'm trying to remember who quoted it, but it said that marketing is basically, telling everyone how great you are. And then it said content marketing is proving it to them. And I think the same kind of thing with the digital employee is companies have historically promoted themselves through their marketing efforts. But what's happening now is great companies are building communities because the employees and the customers start telling their story for them. So, starting with the employees is companies that are really making the digital transformation understand just how critical the employee is to contributing to the company's culture, the company's community, and building that word of mouth marketing that's so coveted today because of the power of social and digital channels.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I give a shout out to all those that are joining us on Twitter using the hashtag Cloud Talk. I see Brandon out there. I see Susie and Charles, and we have Kim. There's a great group and conversation going on there. And I wanted to bring in Brandon's comment. Brandon said on Twitter, he said, agile and adaptive, active listeners who look ahead, audience opinion, new tech opportunities, and social media trends. And to me, the ability to embrace change is really where I like to focus this new digital employee. Not only are they willing to embrace change, but they're also willing to be mentored and learn from those that come before them, and also mentor up. I think reverse mentoring is a skill that is this new digital employee, where a digital employee says, I might not have the business savviness, but I know how to use these digital assets really well. Let me train my leader. Let me train my boss. And in return, they're going to train me on some of these business values and doing some of these other things. And I think that's a pretty powerful trait that these new digital employees have. I think another thing is, and I maybe this is more me hoping than really the truth, I think they believe, or I think we believe, that collaboration is the key to innovation. Collaboration is the key to innovation, where we are greater than me. And if we can put something on Slack, or we can use Yammer, we could use Jive, we could use a collaboration tool to really connect with our fellow peers and innovate together, we can do great things. And I think that's a digital mindset, because let's face it, I don't have to live near Daniel Newman to work with Daniel Newman. I was on a conference call last night, at 11 p.m. I was on a call last night at 11 p.m. with somebody that's in Australia that I was collaborating with, learning how she was doing some things in the digital space. And shout out to Sarah Moore out there in Australia. And to me, what that means is I'm able to collaborate with the people that have the greatest skill set. I don't need to live near them, work with them. So to me, some of these characteristics of this new digital employee are they have the ability and the mindset that let's collaborate. And sometimes collaboration and transparency can be a bad thing, because it can suck away productivity and it can take people away from their job. But it also is a new mindset of this new characteristic.
Yeah, I think you bring a good point about that too with innovation. Is the footprint of a digital transformed company is also understanding the role of small innovation. And I've written about this a lot, but I think we always get in this really get caught up in finding this giant innovation. Like we want to leap from the gas motor car to the electric car to the flying car to the time traveling car. And we don't think about all the tiny little innovations that need to take place between going from electric to flying. And what I mean by that is, a lot of companies I still think back to, I think it was a Xerox commercial, and Xerox for a long time was one of the most innovative companies in the world. And I don't know that they would have that reputation today, but where they had the guy at the printer and he said, this new technology is going to save me a nickel. And he stood there and he says, we do 1 million transactions a day and it's going to save me a nickel, and what he meant was basically, some huge number, right? And what I think a lot of companies is it's making those small, tiny leaps in what they're doing rather than looking for always that giant win. It's celebrating those small successes. It's celebrating the small changes that you're making towards positive, improving customer retention by 1%. It's improving employee engagement numbers and metrics. It's finally implementing data as part of your day-to-day business strategy and no longer just saying, hey, there's a lot of data, and starting to say, here's one way we can effectively use data and implementing that into our business. It's getting the team to understand and getting 10% of your employees to utilize social. I mean, how many enterprises out there could truly say that 10% of their employees are advocates for their brands on social media?
Well, and that's a great point. And actually, Mr. Shapiro, I think I'm going to butcher your first name, so I think it's Kim. Shapiro said, I also believe companies should reward their top viewed employee on LinkedIn. Great brand promotion. And I actually thought that was a really interesting insight, because I talk a lot about celebrating wins, right? And I think if you want to be a social and a digital company, your best, I've always said, and this is something that's always believed, every person in your company sells and every person in your company recruits, right? Because they're oftentimes the first touch point or the reputation of what a brand is. I don't think of IBM anymore as Big Blue. I think of them as the employees that I know. I don't think of SAP as the company that is a logo. I think of Ursula and Gail Moody and these people at SAP that are the faces of the company. And the only reason that I have those relationships is because they are great social employees. So I think it's a great point that he brought up, is that you should also, as companies in this digital world, celebrate your great digital employees, promote them, help amplify them, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to help recruit, help tell your story, build, do your sales pitch, and do your marketing for you. So that's a great point. I'm glad he brought that up out there on Twitter.
Yeah, no, there's always something that we're smart enough about, right, Brian, is knowing that we don't have all the answers. And that's why we love building these community-based talks instead of just jumping onto a platform, right? This is innovation, right? The innovation is, instead of just being two more talking heads getting in front of a camera and saying what we think and what we know to everybody and saying, you should listen to us, we're experts. We say there's a whole lot more value in what all you guys on Blab and all you guys out on Twitter can add to this same community, because you have so many experiences and stories. And so that might be the last point I would make. You talked about collaboration, but I think the companies that are really going to make the leap in digital transformation are going to be the companies that understand that the sum, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And it's that taking in all the little pieces together to build a greater whole, that people throughout your organization have value to add, and to stop trying to say that everything needs to come from the top, and start understanding that those people in the trenches dealing with things every day might have much better ideas about how you can build and grow your business than those that are sitting in the turrets up in the high floors in the corner offices.
Yeah, you know what? In a digital company, I'm gonna give a shout out to a great digital company called the Funky Fairy. And the Funky Fairy, Mr. Funky Fairy, is in the chat right now. But they are an embroidery company in the UK, and they were an early adopters of Meerkat, and they were using Meerkat live streaming to tell their story, show behind the scenes. And he just posted something that I found really interesting in the comments. He said, we did a Snapchat tutorial lesson with our employees yesterday, and now they Snapchat with us and we with them. And I think that's a really innovative thought, because I'm a fan of Funky Fairy. If I ever need embroidery, I'm going to send it to I'm going to order it from the UK, because this company is a digital company, right? And they're embracing live streaming to tell their story. They're using live streaming to even show your product. If you want to order a product from that company, this little startup that's in the UK, they'll actually, on the live stream, you can see your product being embroidered before they ship it out to you. And they're not stopping there. They're building relationships on Snapchat and now getting their employees involved in training their employees. And like I said, I think I say this every week, and I'm never going to stop saying it. Doing that, but it comes down to these three things in this order: trust, training, and tools. And right there, Funky Fairy's proving it. They trust their employee. They're now training their employee, and their employees are executing it with the tool, which is Snapchat in that case.
You should do us a favor, Brian. Say Funky Fairy 5 times fast.
And me saying it fast, like Funky Fairy, Funky Fairy.
Yeah, don't do it. There was a reason I really didn't want you to do it.
I agree.
We'll get that explicit rating.
Yeah, no kidding. So so we're going to jump into question 3. So thank you, everybody that's jumping in on Twitter. I see Sarah Dudley said, a digital employee is a social advocate for your company and your brand. I couldn't agree more with that across the board.
So let me ask you this one, Brian. I'll let you go first. That way I can do the steal and you can do the lightning round. What role does collaboration and sharing of data play in a digital organization's success?
So, I mean, how long have we been talking about silos, right? Silos in organizations are something that's always existed. I don't believe a company could be a digital organization with silos that are still there in the traditional sense. I believe collaboration is the key to being a digital company, and that includes collaboration for all departments, all teams, including the C-suite. You know, the C-suite not only has to collaborate, but before the IT guy made the IT decisions, the security guy made the security decisions. Now marketing's making some IT decisions. IT's guy is making some security decisions. The CEO is probably rolling out something on his LinkedIn profile that he needs to pass by the marketing and PR team. So to me, collaboration is probably even more important than the technology. It's creating a culture that understands that you don't hold on to this knowledge. You don't hold on to what you're working on. You share it. You collaborate, because all of these extra minds. I can tell you, one of my favorite stories was I was deploying Jive to a startup IO data centers that I worked at. And, one of the manufacturing, they're manufacturing modular data centers. And one of the manufacturing managers said, you know what, Brian, I'm going to give your collaboration tool a chance. He said, because look at this Excel spreadsheet that I got back when I sent it out to my entire team. And that's a very digital, quote unquote, digital process. But he had 31 versions of the same exact Excel spreadsheet because everybody sent it back to him. So the next time he sent that spreadsheet, instead of sending it out to all of the people, he posted it on the collaboration tool and said, everybody update this and engage and be part of this document. And now, instead of spending his time figuring out which of those 31 was the most recent and kind of filtering through all of that, he got all of these people to update the document. But what the cool thing was, he got people outside of his document to add value, or outside of his department to add value in this document, in this project, that would have never known about it because they were not on that initial email distribution. So to me, to create that digital organization, that digital culture, you have to have a culture that embraces collaboration, understands the importance of it, and it's more than the technology. It's truly a culture that believes that we have a shared passion and a shared purpose, and we're all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And I think the other thing you mentioned that's super important is understanding about data and hoarding of information, right? So a lot of cultures that have really struggle with politics and such deal with it because people want to hoard their information. They want to make sure that they get credit for their answers because they're worried about how they're seen as they move up and down the organization, right? I don't want to share this great idea I have because I'm afraid that if my boss takes it to their boss, then, I'm not going to get credit for it. I won't get promoted for it. In the modern organization, there just can't be as much time for politics. And that's going to be a really big challenge. That's not something that's easy to fix and that's overnight to fix. But I can't even tell you how many big tech companies that have big tech and digital footprints. Do I know insiders of these companies? And they say things to me like, you can't believe how tumultuous it is inside of our organization, how hard it is to communicate, how we're battling politics all the time in the company. And I think today for the digital organization, you need to be able to be comfortable. I said transparency is kind of the new black, right? Is that companies are going to start being open about their messages. They're going to start sharing when a product has issues and doesn't work, and do it proactively and get it out to the market and let them know, hey, we just built this new product and here's 3 or 4 things we discovered that, that aren't working the way we want to. But you know what? You're important. You're our customers. We would love for you guys to continue to stay with us through this, help us. But instead, the company's philosophy is, no, we're gonna kind of try to hide it. We're gonna send you a response and be like, oh my God, you're the first person that's ever told us that this feature doesn't work. But in the connected world, right, everybody knows this. We're gonna talk to each other. There's no way to hide your inadequacies. So businesses can choose to either get out in front of it or hide in the background from it. And so I think companies are going to get out in front of it, but that's going to not only be the marketing and PR side, that's also got to be on the employee side. People have to be willing to think that in the organization, as we collaborate and come up with great solutions, that it isn't as important to get credit individually as it is to push the organization forward. And I'll say this in short, it's going to take a lot from the leadership to make this succeed, because the leadership really has to own that. They can't just say, okay, we want all you guys to feel good about collaborating and sharing your ideas and then not reward everybody. So, while that whole idea that blew up in Seattle about paying everybody, $70,000 a year didn't quite work out, I think the idea of creating a culture where everybody is feeling like they're an important part of the equation will ultimately lead to better outcomes. But like I said, the executives are really going to have to do that. And I don't know if it's holacracy. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but there has to be some method to getting everybody to feel comfortable sharing their knowledge and collaborating.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think, part of that also comes down to this idea that employees want to be heard. Right? Everybody says they're listening. All the leadership and management says that they're listening, but they want to know that they're heard. And oftentimes it's just saying like, your voice does matter. We want your input on this document. I love the idea that why would you send a company-wide email to the entire company when no one can reply all, because they should have an ejection seat for anybody who hits that reply all button. So instead, post it on an internal platform that allows collaboration, allows your employees to have input and add their insights and share their own company-wide feedback. To me, isn't that what makes a great company great, is all of those great employees? And if we're not willing to use those great employees and leverage those great employees, I don't think those kind of companies are going to be great very much longer. So to me, I'm excited about that. I wanted to pull in a question, which I think now has slid down the way a little bit, but let me pull it up real quick. It was from Lisa. Let's see what Lisa said. Lisa said, oh, shoot, I can't find the question. Oh, I'm gonna bring in Brandon. Brandon said silos are serious roadblocks to company success, which I couldn't agree more. Create a culture of sharing and collaboration. And then Nadia said, well, here, I found Lisa's comment. So Lisa said all employees need to be aware of what's going on in the organization and collaboration while sharing data is allowed. And sharing data, I think, is one that is actually extremely important. I think that leads us probably into question 4.
And I think the other thing we need to probably almost make sure we make the point of, Brian, is less about sharing data and more about sharing information. Because data, that is sort of the next divide, right? Is we're still in this, we like to use the term big data, but it's really about, big context, big information, that we're basically sharing useful insights, not just raw data itself. And that's what we need to take it to the next level, is collaborating on information and using all of the information we collectively have to drive better decisions and faster innovation throughout the organization. So let me jump in and ask you, Brian, question number 4 real quickly. Now let me see if I can pull her up here. How much security and privacy, or how must security and privacy policies change within the digital organization moving forward?
So this one, of course, is close to my heart, working with security in my background. I think the old days of security for security's sake are things that have to be rewritten. A lot of times policies were implemented because they didn't know any better, but they knew that if they implemented this policy, they would be most secure. And I think now you have to kind of balance security and privacy with productivity and doing a little bit of a risk versus reward analysis. And I truly believe in the power of risk versus reward analysis. I think I talk about it every single time I talk about security, but because you have to really value, hey, if I'm not allowing this department to share data with this department, how many more hours do we spend? What's the workarounds? One of my favorite stories is that, when they blocked people from sending, or sending emails or burning CDs, this is the good one. They stopped people from burning CDs in the government offices because they didn't want people sharing data by burnt CDs. So what people started doing was they started putting in thumb drives into their computers because they would pass a thumb drive around. Well, now a CD before was able to be written to once, and you couldn't do anything more but then read it. Well, all of a sudden on a hard drive, you could read, write, you could copy it, you could move it all other places. So by putting in a security, this isn't just an example, by putting in a security platform that said, we no longer allow you to burn information to a CD, it actually created a more security hazard because now people are using thumb drives and something that is a little bit less tangible and allows more risk. So for me, I think organizations have to relook what it means when they're doing security and privacy policies. Do your employees really care about some of these things that you're quote unquote, we're doing it for privacy, we're doing it for security's sake? And yes, sometimes they might care. And yes, I understand the importance of privacy when it comes to stuff like employment data and some of these things that we know like HIPAA is involved in. But at the same time, there's also things that are preventing people from using the proper tool. Like, don't tell me I can't use Google Docs and you want me to use Microsoft Word. And instead, what I end up doing was I copy everything from Word into a Google Doc that is outside of the company firewall. Well, now I'm adding a hole in the security platform so that I can use the tool that makes me most productive. So for me, I think it's all about, let's look at why we have the security, ask the question why, and then do a little bit of risk versus reward analysis and understand, is this security making us more productive, or is the risk not enough for us to actually implement it?
I think that's a real challenge too for organizations, is how do they manage the risk that's being created through the various allowances of different consumer tools being used, right? So Blab IM comes out, and I'm sure there's plenty of people on these calls that are using a work machine right now to be on a Blab. And I'm sure Blab is not allowed in their company policy at this point, but they're on it and they're sharing data on it and they're engaging from it and using social tools from it. And so what does that mean? And I think it comes back to your, the trifecta, the T trifecta that you like, Brian, the trust, training, and tools, is that a lot of people don't understand the risks and they don't understand where vulnerabilities come in. And I think that might be another question about the digital organization moving forward, is they're going to have to start educating the average employee, not just the technical employee, on how they're creating digital risk for their company. Where are they creating vulnerabilities? How does the utilization of shadow IT really come into play? And when they're starting to use consumer apps on a company distributed device, where are they creating risks? because I think that's the problem is most employees don't know. There's no way to educate them. There's no plan to educate them. But what happens is then they get scolded for doing it wrong, or they just end up getting like fired when, they're the reason that something gets breached. So I think moving forward, we're going to have to see an age of information start to get back to the employees too. We're so busy creating product marketing and information so our customers can buy tools from us, but we spend more time creating information to educate our clients than we do spending time educating our employees about what we're selling or what we're using or what we're doing. And so I think it needs to go both ways. So, to put a little quotable in here, right? If we truly believe that our employees are our first customer, then why don't we make the first marketing efforts to our employees?
Well, I mean, how true is that? And if you can't sell your employees, if you can't win your employees over, how the hell are you going to win over a customer that has no, direct, isn't getting paid, isn't getting the food on the table by that case? So that's a great point, Daniel. I think that's a great point. Not only marketing, but listening to your employees, as they should be your first beta testers. They should be the ones that can give you that true information. And I wanted to bring in one here. Illuminati Love says, if you don't train all of your staff on sales and cross-train, you are missing it. And that is so true. And that the training aspect, usually, my number one complaint about training is it's always considered a one-time event, not a continual process. And if your culture can make a training a continual process where it's embedded into something you do every month, and don't make it those boring ethics trainings where someone just gets up there and watches some DVD from 1997 and call that training. That's not training. Training is allowing them to push the boundaries. Let employees train employees. Create a culture that really drives training. So once again, thank you all that are using the hashtag Cloud Talk on Twitter. If you're joining us on Periscope, Meerkat, we are using blab.im. This event is sponsored by SAP and pivot.io. I know the white paper is out there on the Twitter that SAP has out there, kind of talking a lot about this digital transformation. And one of the things that I actually thought was really interesting, I'm going to jump into question 5. They asked, what are the advantages of companies moving forward towards less defined department structures, such as a center of excellence? And I was part of a center of excellence team in 2005. And I thought that was a really interesting, because SAP breaks down what these new departments look like. So Daniel, what are your thoughts there on kind of what are some of these advantages of having something like a center of excellence where it doesn't say marketing department, sales department, it's actually a center of excellence accomplishing a goal or solving a problem?
Right. Well, I want to make one comment on the last question, then I'll move forward into your question here is, if you don't want your employees using Dropbox, then teach them what they should be using instead and make sure it's simple and available to them. Okay, moving forward to this question is, I think what we're really looking at here is, if omni-channel is the experience, right? If the digital experience means omni-channel, means many, many ways of communicating, whether it's through your customer service department, through your sales department, through your marketing department, then why so much are we calling them these different departments that are living in vacuums and silos, right? So all this technology and all this collaboration that we're talking about, Brian, really ultimately connects these departments. So what happens is departments tend to excel at one specific part of the customer journey. But if you say the customer is the first focus of our organization, then you can't successfully get to the customer without having pieces of sales, pieces of marketing, pieces of customer service, pieces of operations, pieces of finance, right? All in working in harmony. So this new center of excellence has to do with taking the portion of each one of those attributes that's required to create a memorable customer journey, and then making sure that that's what's seen for by the customer, because the customer does not give a crap about what department is servicing them. They really don't. What the customer gives a crap is that particular person that they're talking to capable, competent, and empowered to service and support their needs at that moment in time. And so given the way new customers consume information, engage with corporations, is they don't need to be engaged by a specific department. They need to be engaged by a team or a company with all the information at their disposal to properly provide service to them. And so center of excellence might be the term you use, but ultimately what you're talking about is a much flatter, much more integrated, much more engaged and collaborative environment. And you can coin phrases, but I'm basically saying it comes back to what I think you've said for questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is trust, training, tools, and, opening up to collaboration in your organization.
No, for sure. I mean, it comes in all different forms, right? A dotted line organization. I heard that a lot. I actually had at my last company, that was my role. I reported to the CEO. I had a dotted line to the CIO and the CMO, and then I had dotted line to different assets in different departments. And to me, how can you be a company that tries to drive collaboration, and yet someone in the marketing department says, I want to collaborate, but only get to collaborate with marketing people? Why is your if you have a project, you have a campaign, you have an event, why is your marketing team, your salesperson, your PR person, your product person all on the same team working towards the same goal? So I think the idea of a center of excellence I loved it. It was actually probably the most rewarding departments and time of my entire career, and it was very early on in my career. I was one of those very lucky people that said, who wants to come in and work on a Saturday? And I was that dumb, naive guy that thought, well, maybe I'll get a bonus or they'll pay me extra. And I was a salaried employee, and I quickly learned that wasn't going to happen. But what I did learn was on that Saturday, I proved that I had more skill sets than what was just in my confined role. And they said, Brian, we want you to work on our Center of Excellence team because we want you to be well-rounded. We want you to have experience with marketing. We want you to have experience with sales. And I can't remember who said it. Someone said it on Twitter. I wanted to give them credit, but I think I lost it down the list. Is they said, to be a well-rounded employee, you want your employees to working with the sales team sometimes and the marketing team sometimes and be embedded in these other departments. So I think the idea of a center of excellence or, the dotted line is key to digital success, because let's face it, digital now is way more than just a marketing team. To be great at digital, you have to have a CRM system that exists. I'm talking about public-facing digital. You have to have your customer service team involved. You have to have their products properly placed on your digital assets. You have to have HR involved, so you have recruiting on your website. All of that just goes into your website design. So for me, I wonder why companies don't even think of it as your web team should really be made up of someone from all of these different departments. Maybe it's a center of web excellence, right? Something that is all these people coming together to solve a common problem. And I think that is the future of non-siloed, is let's focus on what together we can solve and what together we can do, rather than we are grouped together based on our skill set. Because my favorite quote, is a quote I use all the time, is that I focus on knowing what I don't know and then surrounding myself with people that know what I don't. And if your department is a whole bunch of people that only know marketing, how are you driving innovation? How are you moving forward? How are you scaling if you're only surrounding yourself with people with similar skill sets?
Yeah, right. Well, I think it kind of comes back to what we've also said about the future employee. Is what would you say? Kind of being a jack of all trades, yeah. Right?
Swiss Army knife of skill sets.
The Swiss Army knife of skill sets. So there are 150 things I'm okay at. But you add it all together, and that makes me one heck of a great employee. So, I think that's kind of where we're going is, how do we become valuable when the role we're in today changes? And I think that's another big thing that we'll probably be touching on more and more as the weeks come in this digital transformation series, is that the future organization is also going to be depending on companies that have employees that aren't only able to do one thing. So part of being in the Center of Excellence is cross-training. Our companies have been trying to innovate for a long time with that whole cross-training concept. We're going to cross-train you to learn finance, operations, customer service, manufacturing, IT. They never really executed on that, but going forward, we all need to be able to do a little bit of all those things.
No, I completely agree. When someone called me a generalist the very first time, I was so insulted that I didn't even know what to say. I'm like, screw you. What do you mean I'm a generalist? And then now it looks like, I want somebody that's in marketing department. Let's say I want somebody and here I've hired numerous cybersecurity personnel. For me, having a cybersecurity person that understands digital, understands computer science, understands web design, understands the importance of marketing and selling the concept that we're trying to implement in cybersecurity, that's an employee I want, compared to the old school was, I want you to have these 7 certifications that are probably old and out of date, and I want you to give me a resume that gives me your detailed experience. No, I don't. That skill set now, yes, we want people that are certified. We want people that have degrees. But at the same time, we want someone that has enough understanding of all of these other things that they can provide ultimate value. So I'm excited to see where this idea of the generalist goes. But I'm going to jump into question 6. Thank you, everybody that's joining on Twitter. It is Cloud Talk out on the Twitter. Use the hashtag Cloud Talk to join in on the conversation. Question 6, why is rapid decision-making critical when creating a dynamic digital environment and culture? And this whole idea of rapid decision making, I'm curious, Daniel, because I think we both believe in it, but I think relating it to a digital organization is kind of interesting.
Well, how long does the average business trend last anymore? I was thinking about this in the industry I was in. I came out of the video integration, video conferencing business. And when I started in video conferencing, there was companies like PictureTel that did dedicated rooms. You guys might remember these back from your enterprise days. They used to sit on top of the TV and they looked like an eyeball. And that was like that was video conferencing for like 20 years. For like 20 years straight, that was what video was. And then all of a sudden, a new kind of technology came out. You started to see webcams show up, suddenly desktop video. And now here we are with Blab, right? And I guess what I'm saying is the innovation, the law of diffusion of innovation, where a product goes from, basically your earliest adopters to your mature is becoming increasingly short. And this is the same with business and customers and people deciding whether or not they want to get behind a company. So the amount of time you have to sit and ponder what's next is very, very short. I kind of go back to that Antioco quote I did from Blockbuster, where he talked about Netflix not doing anything that Blockbuster was. And it was true. Blockbuster and Netflix both had a mail DVD service. But in the background, Netflix was making decisions about that the future was in cloud, while Blockbuster made a decision to try to do what Netflix was doing publicly. So Netflix was, so the ability to quickly pivot ultimately allowed Netflix to become a company that's still alive, well, and thriving today, and Blockbuster is now out of business. There's other companies you could put into that same bucket, but you look at like Kodak, right? Kodak was so desperate to hold on to printable film. Even with digital cameras, they were busy building docks that you could plug your phone in and then print the images. Who prints images anymore? I mean, very few people print images anymore, but they made that quick decision. So it's not only about making quick decisions, it's also about committing to seeing what's around the corner, to seeing what's coming up next, and then having a plan and sticking to it rather than copying what you think is innovation at its time. So I guess I'll just say this is with the proliferation of big data and information at our disposal and our fingertips, there really are very, very few excuses, except maybe information overload, not to make quick decisions. And at this point, I'm saying make the decisions quickly. And fail fast, right? We talk about this a lot. Don't make decisions that are so risky that one decision is going to crush your company too often. But stick to what the data tells you. Make decisions and get them into action. Don't wait so long that basically you end up pulling a Kodak or a Blockbuster.
No, I couldn't agree more. I would love to hear those on Twitter and those in the comments section. I think someone on Periscope just said that, there's a London zoo using Periscope or Meerkat right now to give people tours of the zoo so that they want to come there. And I actually, the reason this question actually meant a lot to me was we didn't use real-time decision-making. We said rapid decision-making. And I think the word rapid decision-making is essential here because rapid really, in my opinion, means you're thinking about not only real-time, but at the right time. And I think oftentimes brands get scared and they say, I have to react to the real time that scares the crap out of me. And real time is important for listening, but oftentimes it's more important to listen so you know the right time to make a decision, the right time to implement something. Your example is perfect, Daniel. They were listening in real time. They knew that Netflix was doing something awesome. The problem was they weren't listening and understanding that the right time was they were proving a concept to get them to something else. They knew that a digital asset, and here, let's be honest, innovation is happening at a speed we could never have imagined before. The VHS tape was around for 20 years. The DVD and Blu-ray has been around for 5 and is almost obsolete. I mean, it's that quickly that we're going through stuff, right? I mean, I suffer and embrace FOMO. That's a known fact. But part of that FOMO is not only is it important to understand something that's coming down the pipe, but it's important to understand it and know how it's going to affect what you're doing today. And I think that's something that's critical. So I wanted to bring in a question from Twitter that our amazing Kristen Cardos, the community manager, threw it out there for us. She said, define rapid. Feels like you now have only a few hours to make a smart decision that can impact the entire strategy. And I think I kind of covered that a little bit in the importance of real time mixed with the right time. So I still believe in having checks and balances. I still believe in not just reacting at every shiny object or one person that's complaining or writes a bad Yelp review or post on your Facebook page or sends in a bad product review, and all of a sudden you rewrite the entire product. That's not rapid decision making. That's stupid decision making. Rapid decision making that you have the ability to make a decision without putting it through a process that is useless. I mean, I work for the government. A lot of times they would say, that's a great enhancement. Put it through our process. Let us know if it gets approved in 6 months. And I'd be like, why does it take 6 months? Because that's the process it needs. Well, in 6 months, this isn't going to work. Okay, well then don't put it through. We're not going to implement it because it takes 6 months for us to pull that off. That is not rapid decision making. That's why the government is still deploying, Windows 7 across 80% of their environment, because Windows 10 is out today. The government's still busy deploying Windows 7 because they don't work in a rapid pace. They work in a very slow, methodical, drawn out pace for no better reason than that's the way they've always done it.
Yeah, the bottom line is big businesses that continue to make decisions at the rate that they were accustomed to being able to make decisions will be gone. The Center for Business Digital Transformation, I think it's Cisco and one other analyst firm does this together, basically came up with a study that said 4 in 10 businesses today that are the incumbent leaders in their industries will be gone in the next 5 years. And if you look at the Fortune 500, right, how long was the same group of companies in the Fortune 500? And then in the last 5 and 10 and 15 years, how much has the Fortune 500 actually changed? And moving forward, it's going to be even faster. So big companies used to really sit on their hands a long time to make decisions. They'd be guided by decisions as things such as, making the quarter on Wall Street. But now they're going to have to make more decisions that are further out and thinking further out, or else they're going to get crushed. And, there's a lot out there about how small companies are going to create a lot of problems for big companies moving forward because small companies are extremely agile and they're taking the big risks, right? Venture capitalists want 5 to 10 times return on their money within 5 years. Well, that's the same kind of thing these small businesses are looking at. They're making decisions that would allow an investor to get 5 and 10x return in 5 years. And these startups are coming out at breakneck pace. There's so many of them, right? I mean, I see just in my Twitter stream, founder of this, founder of that, founder of this, and they're all like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. And like I said, how many of them will succeed? Probably 1 in 20,000. But you know what? There's 2 million of them out there. So there's so many companies starting and trying things and doing things, making really rapid decisions, taking a little bit more risk than a big company may be willing to. But all it takes is for one of them to really break, and suddenly they're very, very disruptive. And so then what the big companies basically can do is either 1, copy it, 2, buy it, or 3, try to innovate on it. And chances are they're more likely to try to buy it. And oftentimes when they do buy it, they don't do a great job of integrating.
Yeah, and someone just said on Periscope, but that's a really good point, and I'm going to kind of address this. They said, driving massive change across large organizations and enterprises is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. And I first off, like my first immediate answer is, if you don't change, you're going to die. So change or die, right? I take that stance, but I'll actually take a different approach to that, a little bit less of a harsh approach. I believe small changes made across multiple organizations drive big success. And I think that's where you start. You don't try to change the entire, we don't need to boil the ocean. Let's start with each individual department. Let's start getting them collaborating. Let's start hiring and firing for culture fit. Let's start implementing a digital mindset. Rather than your CEO coming out and sending putting a paper memo out to everybody, why does he not post that on the internal collaboration center? To me, to drive this digital change, it starts by making small, educated decisions of change in many different platforms. And that's, it's as simple as maybe changing the image on all of the laptops of all of the machines so that it has the latest technology. No, I know you can't train all of them immediately, but at least by giving them the option to train themselves, or maybe creating YouTube videos for people to watch and learn about the newest technology or become part of your beta team. I can't tell you how many times someone says, Brian, it takes so long for us to deploy new software across our enterprise. We wish we were a startup. And I said, you know what a startup does? They ask all of us in the industry. I'm testing 7 apps on my iPhone right now for different brands and different companies. They deploy people to test it. If you're an enterprise, you have all the people already right there employed for you. Why are you not leveraging their knowledge, leveraging their expertise, leveraging them to be kind of your beta customers as well? So I think that's something that companies have to look at when they're looking at change. Start making small changes that ultimately will lead to big success.
So a lightning round here. Last question. And we got about 3-4 minutes, Brian, before we're at the bottom of the hour. But, or I guess the top of the hour, you could say. Let's have you answer this one first. Question 7 is, can organizations become digital organizations without being customer-centric and experience-driven? Should we just say no and end the chat?
No. Yes, you're correct. No to the answer, and yes, the answer is simply no. The lightning round, not often you can get a one-word answer from me. The answer is no. We are living in a culture now that is about creating new experiences. The customer is no longer dumb. No matter what you're saying, no matter what you believe, no matter what your industry is, your customer has the data, has the tools available to them today to make educated, smart decisions. It's time for you to realize that, empower that. And the problem is, the companies that get it, the companies that have a great product and understand that are going to succeed. The companies that suck, the companies that don't have a great product are going to be scared to death of this, because if you don't trust, empower your employees, your customers, and become customer-centric, quickly you're going to have no customers. And what's a business with no customers? Out of business.
I love that. And it's a great short answer, and I'll add my 1 minute to it. Is if it goes back to what I said earlier. If you truly believe in customer centrism, then you know your employees are your first customer, and you make that your first focus in creating an environment and a community of employees who are the biggest advocates, biggest evangelists of your brand. Nobody wants to go to work or be part of a company that the employees have very, very negative feelings and sentiments about the company. And we're in a world now where that information it kind of takes us full circle. The information about your company is widely out there, whether that's through back channels or front channels. People can and are able to learn whether or not your organization is one that's moving forward and embracing change and is embracing digital, or your company is one of those that's in the past, operating from the past, living in the past. Closed door meetings, shut door offices, closed door, philosophies. And, moving forward is customer centrism starts within the 4 walls of your organization, or the unlimited walls, as we like to say, of our organization. And it moves outward from there to the first layer of customers, to the customers who are telling their friends and becoming our advocates, becoming our communities, becoming our testers, and becoming the ones that share the good messages of our organization out into the public. So I think that's a great question. And I think the last point you added too, Brian, is experience, is understanding that the experiences we create for our customers ultimately define us. 2 years ago, I wrote an article, and I'd like to think I was a little ahead of my time when I said this, Brian. I said average experiences are the new bad. I said, because you're better off being terrible than being average, because nobody remembers mediocre experiences. So you have to think about that on a day in and day out basis. Is how are you creating a memorable experience so that your employees and your customers and the people that leave every day have you at the top of their mind.
No, I love it. That's it. So thank you, everybody, for joining. This was Cloud Talk. We are here every single Thursday at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. We are using Blab now, which is our new collaboration platform, allowing us to do the video chat, bring in some of your comments. We just tweeted out the link to our sponsor, SAP. SAP has a new blueprint for digital marketing success. It's where we actually drove a lot of the questions from this conversation. We got a lot of them from their insights, the data that they've used in that report. So go ahead and check out that link, sign up, download that report. Some really good information in there, give you a toolkit for marketing and digital success. Thank you to SAP. Thank you to pivotpoint.io. Thank you, Daniel Newman out there in Chicago. We both wore collars today, which is rare for us on this show, and I think that might have been why. I think it was an awesome show. Probably not. It's probably just because we have an awesome community, and Twitter was rocking, Periscope was rocking, Meerkat was rocking. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Chris Cardos, our community manager out there on Twitter. We will see you same time, same channel next week. We're out.
Glad you later.
Glad you later.